real name is Joanne Elizabeth Screes, and I was known as Sister Margaret Eugene in the congregation, but most people call me Jodie, and that's what I prefer. Unless you're angry with me, then call me Joanne.
I entered as Margaret O'Flynn, and my nickname is Peg. And when I changed my name, it was Sister John Helene. I entered in 1956.
I forget when I entered.
Well, anyway, I can still remember.
Yes, it was in the 50s.
Yes.
53, I think.
And we meet again.
I
because
know, what a joy.
We were at Weber.
Yes, we took
Not
turns.
together.
No,
Yeah.
we took turns.
We kept the place going.
Yes.
And I didn't do such a hot job the first time, so I came back.
You came back,
I came back
the second
again.
time.
So
In my next life, I'll be there.
Good.
But it's been wonderful that I remember interviewing Peg, and she said she would love to do this someday. So when I was ready to let go, at this age,
Yeah,
Peg said yes and
Well,
picked
I
it
know.
right up.
I just found that so energizing to think you did all the sisters, their stories, and were able to meet them on that intimate level, and our women were so open. I just thought I would love to do that when I don't have anything to do. So I was great. I'm glad you remembered me.
Yes. Talk about them being open. I think that's what I loved, was the enthusiasm or the willingness even. Many preferred having a pre-interview, and honest, I wish we could have recorded those because sometimes it went on for an hour. So our first, should I say, victim was Sister Arnold Benedetto from Georgia. And what a story she had and how dear she was. And I was surprised. I finally learned how to look on the YouTube to see how many hits.
Right.
And she had close to 1,200 hits. And I just found that astounding. But she has a lot of students and, what should I say, gracious followers. For that. Yes.
You mentioned earlier that the sisters were very excited about doing the story. I'm here to tell you, there's not too many right now. They see me coming into the Maria dining room and say, "Oh, watch out! Here she comes with her little yellow book."
Yeah.
But for some reason, some of the sisters don't want to tell their story until you spend a little time with them outside of the storytelling, and they look at some of the stories. Yeah.
I was going to ask you what your trick was, because you have interviewed a few sisters that said no to me. So you must hang something over their head, or
Well, I think one of the things that happened was there are a lot of them at the DLC that I know through other ministries that I've been involved in, and so I know the one you're talking about in particular.
Yeah.
So I said, "Oh, come on. Someone else I've got hanging out there." She said, "As soon as I get a room at Regina, I'll be interviewed." So now I got to go see the administrator of Maria to get her a room so I can get her interviewed.
Oh my! I look back on the number of sisters who have died, and I rejoice in that we have their story, live. There have been about 12 or 13. I don't know. Have you kept track of them?
Kept track of.
Yeah.
I mean, we post them on with the obituaries.
Yeah. The first one I know was Rosemary Conlon, and I think she was about the second one we interviewed. And what a story she had, and the joy and the trepidation with which she embraced Vatican II was just quite amazing. And then Audrey Hull was next, and she's deceased now. Audrey had been in Florida for 34 years, had been an ombudsman. First one I've heard about that legal status, but for a hospital, which I thought was quite quite amazing. And then Kathleen Donnelly, I don't know if you remember Kathleen.
Oh, yes, very
She
much.
had spent over 80 years in the South.
And was
she
still
told-
principal.
And still
At
was
late
principal.
80s.
And she told the story about a principal's meeting, I guess. You're supposed to take a companion from the school, but there were only 6 sisters, so she didn't take. So she got in the car. She was going to go from Pensacola to Mobile, Alabama. And before long, she found herself in a cornfield with a flat tire, saying, "Oh, Lord, what am I going to do now?"
Goodness.
And she says, literally, out of nowhere, a man appeared. Now, she's in the habit. And he said to her, "Are you an Adrian Dominican sister?"
Oh, my.
He was a retired cop from Chicago.
Oh,
That's quite a remarkable story. And I don't know if you remember Sister Fran Barfield talking down Ku Klux Klan men down south. They came right into her school, really concerned about accepting a diverse population in their school.
and you know, as you're talking and remembering these stories that are so unique, it's very disheartening when you invite someone to tell their story and their first comment is, "Oh, my life is not as interesting as so-and-so, whoever was just on." And you try to convince them that, you know, your story is worth it. Your life, you're part of our history. We need to know that. And I know many of us have said when we go to, and we do go to a few wakes around here, that I wish we had known that beforehand. And I think that's one thing with your starting telling these stories, but they just can't. So you have to work the women and keep inviting them. I was taken aback. I think there's a few stories we've done. Every interview has been special because it's the story of this particular woman. But then there are some that you get so engrossed in that you forget you're interviewing. It's like you're sitting there talking. And the recent one I did, which I'm sure is going to be up pretty soon, is Sister Carmen Alvarez, who just came from Florida. She was down there a long time. So I invite you all to listen to her story because she's from Cuba. She's a Cuban, and she was in Cuba at the time of all the crises over there, and she was very involved in work in the ministry with the church. And evidently that was a no-no back when the trouble was going on there. So she was put. They came to her house and took her, and she was put in jail for a certain amount of time. So I invite you to look at that next story to hear the rest of her story, because I was quite taken aback by the whole thing. I got so into it that you kind of forget forget that you're interviewing. There's more to her story than that. But
Well, many of our sisters, first of all, didn't know one another's last name.
right.
And so that was just another person's last name and where they are from, unless their family had come to visit them. But besides, you mentioned starting the interviews because we'd hear their story at the wakes and say, "Why didn't we know that before?" Because we're rubbing shoulders. But Sister Nadine Foley, when she was prioress, received a call from someone at the DLC, Maria, that a sister wanted to see her. Mm-hmm. And to make a long story short, the reason was this sister wanted to make sure someone knew who she was. And that just stuck with me.
Right, I remember that.
So one day, driving, I was in the car with Elise driving, and I said to her, "Do you think Ray Casey would have, from the technology of my, have a little VCR that video player, so I could go into the rooms and interview?"
Oh.
And the next day, Elise calls and said, "Can you meet with Scott and Ashley?"
That's how this started.
That's how that started. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't on your job description. Ashley, God bless you. You made it happen.
Team effort.
Thank you.
So that's how you started this. How did you come across the title? That was
that's
Scott?
Scott's invention. That and the beautiful music and all of the details. Well, I had the strangest communication with a woman from the Southwest. I think she went through the routine to get here, to get to me. But she didn't know the Adrian Dominican sisters, but she was in a parish where they taught here in Detroit. Now she's in the Southwest. And she says she doesn't go to bed at night without watching one of the interviews. She is so fascinated. I think people in the past, especially Catholics, looked upon us as a mystery because, did we have hair? First of all, we were all covered up. And to see us having a normal life and embracing the hardships and joys like anybody else in this world, I think is what's astounding to many. There was a gentleman that had our sisters in, I don't know if it was Deerfield, someplace around here. And he said he always wondered who was behind what they were doing behind those closed drapes. Was such a mystery. And,
saying our prayers.
Pardon me?
Saying our prayers,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, recently we had the funeral of one of our former prioresses, Sister Janet Capone. And it's because Sister Donna Baker down south, having looked at our interviews, decided to interview her own mission group. And what a treasure that
Because
was.
we didn't
I
do
would
it.
just hope all of our sisters might think of doing something like that.
Or I have another idea, and I've mentioned this, that we could find a benefactor. But I think what might be nice, maybe 1 week out of the month or once a month, or once every other month, is to take Ashley or Scott and we go to another part of the congregation, in Florida maybe in the wintertime, and California, and
That's really true.
and just set up interviews with our sisters in other places. Maybe we could start in the Detroit and Chicago area and get some interviews of our women out there. I do try to, and I think you did too, try to look ahead, and I check with Weber who's coming in, how long are they going to be here, and if they're going to be here on a Tuesday, then I try to schedule them. And we did that with the three sisters from the Dominican Republic, Eneda and Basilia and Luci. And so we got them when they were here for the sisters under 65. I was going to say under 25, under 65. So, but that would ease the tension of trying to get people in, to run around the congregation. What do you think about that?
I think that's a wonderful idea.
I remember when I first started, and one of the sisters came up to me, and she had already been interviewed, and she said, she saw me in Maria dining room, and she said, you know what, I don't want that thing on any place where someone's going to see it, she said. So I took her aside and asked her, I said, did you see it? She says, no, but I remember what I said. And I said, but you haven't seen it. She said, no, I don't know how to do all this stuff. So I went to her apartment one afternoon. She was afraid she left some things out about her family, particularly one of her brothers who had been in World War I or World War II. So I went up there with her and we watched that for a half hour. That, for me, was just a very special time. She looked at it. She was so touched by her story. And I said, now, we can take it off. Ashley said, all we have to do is just let her know and she'll take it off YouTube and take it off. No, I said what I wanted to say, but I forgot what I said. But it was beautiful. It was just very touching for her to say that. And I think we don't know what we say sometimes as we're being interviewed, and how it really does touch us at times.
Ashley, you asked about feedback from the outside forces. A lot of feedback has come through Amy Palmer, our development director, because she's very sharp. If there's if they make a donation in honor of one of the sisters, and she knows that their interview is on record, she shares that. So we've gotten quite a bit of feedback from particularly former students, which is wonderful. And I'm happy too that the older sisters were so willing. I mean, we even interviewed, if you remember, Sister Charles Christine Unavy, who was 99 at the time, and she's 101 now, and just as sharp.
Yeah.
Which is quite amazing. That was a grand interview. The other one that I remember that I was really surprised at, because I hadn't known her for a while, and that was Teresa Nightingale. And the work that she and Mary June did down in Florida to promote the reading skills for adults and youngsters, starting in their garage of all things. But each sister is a vessel of our history. I mean, the history of the world, even.
But a lot of times, I think that's what I was trying to say earlier, they don't believe that about themselves. That they hear about, the people's names you hear all the time, and they say, what have I got to say? Until you get in there with them. And I don't do enough meeting them ahead of time to get them in there and get them relaxed, etc. But their stories are just as valuable as those who have run corporations, have run high schools, have run colleges, have run universities. But if we can just believe in the ministries that we have been about, because we have touched so many lives and so many people that we can't even begin to realize what has come out of our mouth because of who we are and what we are about. And there is no Adrian Dominican whose story is not important or is unimportant. Everyone. So I just encourage the rest of our women, your time is coming.
Do you remember Donna Wenzel? Maybe not, but she's deceased now. But she started that ministry of making blankets for the children and for those in need. And she continued that when she came. She was just here a short while in Maria. It's stories like that, I think, that touched my heart.
Have you seen any common themes between any of the interviews?
I don't know exactly that, but one thing that's very evident, Adrian Dominicans are happy, and a lot of our women were taught by IHMs, or the IHM sisters in Monroe had a great influence on us because we weren't allowed in Detroit particularly, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the majority have had Adrian Dominicans.
They've had Adrian Dominicans, but I've just been amazed at the amount of our women who have had influence with the IHM sisters. Oh, of course, we just take for granted that some hadn't even met Adrian Dominicans when they entered.
Well, look at Rosemary Ferguson. No one could understand how she could get to the cornfields of Adrian from Nebraska, Spalding, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Hopefully will be a shot in the arm for those who are watching our little conversation.
Please, yes. It's a gift to the congregation is to share who you are. Who are you and what are you about? And who has been the influences and the mentors in your life? And what has been the most engaging or surprising experience that you have? And is there something about you that would surprise all of us?
No, Helen Essa's family came from Iraq. That surprised me.
Oh, right.
And I don't know if you remember Jean Holloway lives in Regina, and she got word from a doctor in Florida that she had 46 years ago. Now, how he happened to see this interview, I don't know, but he got in touch with her. She was just so moved by that. That's quite remarkable.
What have you two personally learned from the project?
Well, I feel like I've been the witness to and privileged to have opened the door and heard more of the story, the richness of each individual. I think that's been my joy. I just loved every minute. And then, probably a year after we started doing the interviews, we said, why not interview the co-workers? And the first co-worker we interviewed had been with us 44 years, Janice Faber. And she's still in the tiny room. God bless her. And who was it? Teresa Horn, like 35 years, and that still continues.
Right, the
Yes.
co-workers. But as far as what have you learned, I think I just feel that our women have just been so trusting of us as they open up what is very special. And really, they kind of forget, and I think I do too, that you're being interviewed and what they share and what some of their experiences have been. But they seem very lighthearted, at the end. And it's a real experience. And I know when I started this, I really felt privileged. I kind of look forward to Tuesdays, in the morning, because where I was working was just working with cars, so I wanted to work with people. So to do this was such a gift, and to have our women be so trusting in sharing who they are was...
and you cannot deny the impact that these sisters have made on the world within which they were ministering, teaching. There's a lovely story in the development letter this week, or the newsletter, about a gentleman whose family had suffered some tragedy, and he had his family and his siblings went through school without paying tuition. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. And what that says about the Adrian Dominican sisters. I mean, that probably was true in all Catholic schools, but it's nice, so nice to hear those stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did your family? Did you tell your family you were being interviewed?
No. But they enjoyed.
How did they
listening.
know then? How did they?
I think I told them.
Oh, you think you did tell them?
Yeah.
I never told them. I thought, there's no way am I going to tell them I did that, because when you're interviewed, it took me a while to even look at it. So I didn't tell any of them till I started getting notes from my sisters and the kids. The nieces and nephews told their mothers and fathers and their grandmother. So that's how my family heard out. They really enjoyed it. So whenever there's someone that they know, they want me to tell them that, so-and-so, Pat McDonald or Mary Ann Fallman or whatever, is interviewed. Or you had this person in high school. These are some of the teachers you had. Here's their story. So that has been nice.
Joanne McCauley tells the story of a former student was visiting in Seattle, and he asked his mother, is Sister Joanne McCauley still alive? Excuse me. So he Googled her name, and up came the interview. So he contacted her through the community, and the rest is history.
But to get back with the coworkers, I think that's a gift, because just look at the finance office. How many people in that finance office connect with our women with various things regarding their life? And so to put a face on those names has been great. However, it's a challenge getting people to be interviewed. The coworkers are just like the sisters. No. But that is so important, I think, for our history, for people to know that there is a face, there is a person that is important to the congregation.
If I were to do this again, I would try to be more spontaneous and do the digging, as you said. I know there's another, but taking them perhaps to another level, and perhaps not so much on their ministries, but themselves as a person. I think that's really, really important because we can read there. I mean, everyone's supposed to do an autobiography, or we have the list in the information office of where we have been missioned. So it'd be more like a collective impact of looking back in your 60s when you were 60 or 50 and what have been the highlights of your life, that kind of thing.
And not focus that much on the ministries.
Yeah.
I know Scott has said that on occasion, go deeper.
Yeah.
And I think at the beginning I felt I was being intrusive. And by digging deeper, it's none of your business. And I thought, no. Then he kept after me,
I think people want to tell their story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one has said back to me, because I have said beforehand, if there's something we talk about and then later on you feel I don't want that recorded, just let us know. We can let it go, but let's just go with what we want to do. I know for myself, I think what I want to do is to spend some time with the person being interviewed ahead of time. Because a couple of the ones that I've done, that I got them ahead of time, and one was that sister that you said you couldn't get, and I got her, we did meet ahead of time, and I said, this is the way it'll go. And she says, I have nothing to say. She said, you know what I'm going to talk about? 2 things. I said, no, it's not about an issue. I said, it's about you. We want to know about you. We know what your issues are. She had a couple political issues she wanted to talk. And I said, we know those. We want you. And she was wonderful. Our women are a gift, and I hope that they will continue to realize that. And when they see me in the dining room, not to say no before I even say hello.
As we come to an end here, this could not have been done without Scott and Ashley.
Right,
so
right.
1,000 thank yous. Not only to the dear sisters and co-workers we've interviewed it will be 3 years in October, and close to 250 some interviewed, and for our listening audience, that they've taken time to view these lives and to comment or to talk about it or to share it with others. That means so much. Not only to the individual sister, but to the community, Adrian Dominican sisters in general. And I know individual sisters have told me how grateful they are when they hear from their students, or they hear from family that they, a cousin far away that they never, someone even got a response from Australia. Imagine that.
Yeah, I can.
So it's been exciting. First of all, the joy of the sisters and their beautiful lives, and that they've shared those so generously with us. So I thank everyone who has said yes and continues to want to do this again, perhaps. Because some I wanted to keep going, like with Sister Rita Schultz. I mean, she told the story, a beautiful story about the beginning of the Dominican Republic, the Colegio, but we didn't get the rest of her stories. And she's 92 now. So hope maybe someday we can go get this part 2.
Some people have had everyone has a very interesting story, but there is, and I've said to them, you know what, we're going to start doing part 2, because there is something to do with the rest of the story. And I know in telling the story, sometimes I can get so preoccupied with the things I want to know about your ministry and all of that, and you're telling me something that's very significant that I need to keep probing with, and I think that's a learning for me on how to do that. Because when we get finished, if it's something that the sister doesn't want, or the coworker, or the associate, whomever, we can cut it, but not to be afraid to ask some of those questions to go deeper with our women.
You know who was a joy to interview was Pat McDonald. She had energy that could take you to California and back. It was such enthusiasm about Siena Heights
Oh, yeah.
University.
And I saw it, and I said to her, "You never talked about your family. She's the youngest of 10." I said, "You didn't mention your family."
Well, that was
I'm going to talk to Jodie.
That was probably my fault.
Teasing.
Oh.
All right, one
Yeah.
one last question. You could have one word to describe the past 3 years. What would it be?
Joy.
Awe, just awe at our women and their integrity and their sincerity. Oh, one word. I can't count.
One word.
I can't
Breaking the
count.
rules.
I'm breaking the rules. Not the first time, and it won't be the last.
She's Irish.
Yeah. Come to me, all you have stories to tell, and I will sign you up. We have a few spots left in this next year. I want to say thank you for remembering. I said I'd like to do this.
Oh.
I never thought it would happen.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
I did, you know.
Thank you for not being able to do this anymore. That was so nice of you.
In listening to some of the ones I've done before, I thought, oh, Jodie, you're so smart to have stepped back from this.
Oh.
Oh, I could hear my voice get older and older.
Really?
Yes.
So you listened to all the ones you did?
No, I just
Oh.
scattered.
Yeah.
Scattered.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for
Well, thank you.
for your creativity and presenting this and doing it. It's great.
Let's thank
It's a nice
Elise Garcia.
Elise, that's right.
She got the ball rolling, right?
Right.
Yes.
She did. Thank you, Elise Garcia.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in over these past almost 3 years. But just tuning in once is quite remarkable. So thank you.